Do you love Pennsylvania? I can't hear you. Do you love Pennsylvania? I love you. It's been said that we're all travelers in the wilderness of this world. And the best that we can find in our travels is an honest friend. I am among honest friends, and the travel has been worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Enche Zama. I want to hear you repeat that. Enche Zama. Dr. Enche Zama. And I'm running to serve you. Others are running for governor, but I'm running to serve you. I love you. God is great. You know, Pennsylvania's dying. It needs a heart surgeon. I'm not a politician. I'm a heart surgeon, a retired heart surgeon, a scientist, and recently a published author. When a heart surgeon drops a scalpel and decides to run for governor, there's something terribly wrong. Are you disappointed with the way things are going in Pennsylvania? Let me hear you. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, there can never be greater disappointment where there's not great love. And we all love this great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we got to band together and make it what it ought to be. The best state in the United States of America and a power in the global arena. That's where I want to go with you, to Harrisburg, and do that.
Let's do it, Dr. Zama.
And to start off, I'll tell you a little bit about my journey real quick. I was born in a little grass hut village in Africa, in a country called Cameroon. Yes, a grass hut village. Slept on a bamboo bed, no mattress, with a dirt floor, battling roaches, trying to seek refuge in my ear canal, and rats every night nibbling on my toes and my fingers. And this is not fake, it is real. And in that village, I had two wonderful parents who raised me. It was a socialist country. And my mother and father got arrested a few times. My mom got raped, my father got tortured. That's socialism, arbitrarily. But they loved me, and they stayed up every night with me and studied with me. They couldn't read or write, but they'll give me the book, and they'll sit by me 3 hours, 3 hours minimum a day. I would study. I enjoyed school. It was a missionary school. And then something happened. My mother went to the hospital to give birth. She was 30 years old. When I left her that morning, I was all excited, as often I was, even with the 10-mile trek in the morning through the jungle to elementary school. On the way back from school, I ran into my uncle, and he looked very worried. And he said, "Something is wrong. Your mother gave birth, but she needs blood." And I ran off to the hospital. When a child hears mother, blood, those are not very good words together. And when I walked into the room, a nurse was crying, "There's no doctor, there's no doctor." And I looked to my left, and blood was flowing out of my mother's groin, down the corner of the bed to the floor, making a puddle. And she was writhing in pain and screaming and crying. And when she heard I was in the room, she said, "Son, go home. I'm dying. Go home. I'm dying." And I ran over to her, held her hand, held her leg. I says, "Mommy, please don't die." What else could I say? And she went on. Unfortunately, the energy left her. And as I stood there holding her hand, refusing to leave, she died. When I left that hospital room, trekking back through the jungle to the village, I decided that I wanted to be a doctor so no other child would have to experience what I just experienced and no mother or father would have to suffer as she did in the throes of death. And that journey has taken me to the point where I'm standing here with you today. But something happened. A lot of well-intentioned people, villagers, got together. After I gained admission to an American school, I had attended a prestigious institute, a college, we call it, and graduated top of my class. But we didn't have money. We were poor villagers in grass huts. But the villagers got together one day, sat in one of the huts, passed the basket around, and it amounted to $20. And my father sold his land, $300, and bought me an air ticket that I still carry with me today to remind me of the journey. And that journey dropped me off in New York City, and I caught a Greyhound bus to Baltimore, my destination. But my sufferings were only beginning. I was happy to be in the land of opportunity, but I had no home, so I wound up at the YMCA, crying every night, drinking water from the sink. Couldn't sleep, lost practically half my body mass, until a young man who was working in the YMCA that summer came up, knocked on the door, saw me in my plight, and proceeded to bring me peanut butter jelly sandwiches each day to nourish me. And he went on the college radio and he announced in Baltimore, would anybody be willing to house a homeless student? I was just a teenager, early teens. And yes, when the clarion call went out, as I always said, Jesus, God stations angels along the way. A gentleman showed up. His name is Sam. And I remember being called down to the lobby, and I was scared that they were going to kick me out of the YMCA. I had no place to go. And when I got down there, he looked at me and says, are you? I says, yes. He says, go get your stuff and come with me. And I lived for a year with Sam. And every morning, he would drive me to school. Then the professor of that college saw something in me, and he said, son, you need to move to Boston, where you can work and go to school. You're a hardworking kid. And be the doctor that you've always wanted to be, and the scientist you'd always wanted to be. So I went on, after a year in Baltimore, moved to Massachusetts, where I didn't know anybody. And again, I worked hard, suffered a lot, many long nights and deep thoughts. Eventually, I graduated with a degree in chemistry and went on to do a master's in business at Harvard and a PhD ultimately in chemistry, and graduating again from Harvard Medical School to become a heart-lung surgeon. This is the greatness of America that I want to make real for the children here, for our future generations. After graduating, I didn't go back out there and start buying fancy things, contrivances for myself. No. I traveled the world doing free heart surgery for babies, as some of you already know. Operating in Cambodia, in Brazil, in Africa. Sometimes delivering babies, because all they knew was you were a doctor. But thank God, I had been trained in general surgery before I became trained as a cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon. And then I decided I needed to make that American dream real for others. So I embarked on an inner city mentoring program for the disadvantaged, for the poor, which became very successful, many of whom have gone on to enter professions in their lives. And what else? I educated a couple of dozen of my nieces and nephews right through university. And what else? I embarked to support and build schools for the poor and for orphans. God gives you an opportunity, and you're really the seed that needs to be planted so we can have a more bountiful harvest. I love America. This is the greatest nation in the world. I know a thing or two about socialism. My gosh, I don't want to go back to it, and neither should you. I love and embrace our Constitution. That's a document of freedom that's been copied around the world. Let nobody touch it. It's sacrosanct. Amen. Amen. amendment.
Amen.
No further discussion. I spent my whole life saving lives. And some of you sitting here today know somebody with my incision on their chest. I was the director of heart surgery, director of the Heart Institute in the Pocono. Before that, the director of the Heart Institute at the Guthrie Clinic, Robert Parker. And then, before deciding to run for governor, I was the director of the Heart Institute in Philadelphia at Jefferson area. I know a thing or two about human service and leadership. I know a thing or two about human suffering and what it means to be a servant leader. Just give me a couple of minutes here. I know I have time constraints, but you need to know that not only am I a supporter of the U.S. Constitution, which we all should be, because we're beneficiaries of it. By gosh, a bunch of people sat in Philadelphia and signed a document, a Declaration of Independence, knowing they were signing the death sentence.
Yes, they were.
And
Yes,
what is our excuse? And here we have so many privileges, we can sit back and start to challenge this document of freedom that has undergirded freedom movements around the world. A lot of us should be ashamed of ourselves.
Amen.
Leave the Constitution alone.
Amen.
Yes, yes.
I'm for election integrity because anything otherwise undermines our democracy and makes it useless. We must fight for fairness in the electoral process. And I will stand strong against anybody who stands otherwise. I'm against illegal immigration. Like all of you, I'm a legal immigrant. Let's keep it that way. And this state should never be a sanctuary for illegal immigrants. While our veterans, like my brother sitting back there, sleeping on the bridges. Somebody needs to speak hard about that. While the elderly can't even find enough money to buy the medicines that they need. I know a thing or two about that as a doctor. I see them in my office, and I've had to buy prescriptions for many of them because they can't afford it. While we spend billions of dollars on illegals. Keep them where they need to be. Take care of our children in this state. We have two of the most endangered species here in Pennsylvania. Black men killing each other in the cities. And white men drowning their frustration and despair with drugs and alcohol. A leader should be focused on those endangered species. These are our brothers and sisters, no matter what the zip code is.
Amen.
That's what a leader should be doing in Harrisburg.
Come on, Doc. Come on.
Like I said, there can't be any greater disappointment where there's no great love. And I love this great nation. Any leader who's not tender with the children, compassionate with the elderly, tolerant of the striving, and sympathetic with the weak and the strong should not be a leader.
Right.
That's somebody who's self-serving. We are at the crossroads of history right now, and we need to make the decision about what kind of leader we need. It's a different type of leader. We keep electing the same people and expecting a different outcome. That's a definition for what? Enough of politicians. We need public servants.
Come on, Doc.
And look at what COVID has done. I'm telling you now, people, I'm a scientist and a heart surgeon. I speak from the heart. There are a lot of people who are running for governor and many other positions. They need a job. I don't. Because I can continue to serve you as a heart surgeon or as a humanitarian. But I'm telling you, the COVID crisis, this COVID virus, and the things that it's caused, it's going to be a major problem in the years ahead. Who do you want in Harrisburg handling the next pandemic? There are 25 viruses, Courtney, waiting to enter society. 25, folks. Who do you want in Harrisburg? If you make the wrong decision, you have to own the outcome.
Yes.
Our mothers who are fighting in the front lines are having to come home and deal with an educational system that has been upended. And no wonder mental illness is so epidemic in Pennsylvania now. I know it, I see it, and you know it too. And one of the most common causes of death, let's start talking about real issues. I'm not here to kiss babies and be a politician and make promises and leave and do nothing.
Yes.
I've spent my whole life, like my brother said earlier, look at their track record. Well, look at my track record. I've spent my whole life serving, and I can't stand seeing that we're losing our children. And the governor is not losing sleep over it.
No, right. He's a scumbag.
That's wrong. And we're responsible because we got him there. But that needs to change. And our educational system, we're failing. Google tonight. This cradle of democracy is scored so far down the list that it's a shame to talk about it. Our kids, our education is not bringing them any value. That needs to change. And as I move to my conclusion here, I want to tell you that as your leader, you have to have the highest expectations. I tell you a little bit about heart surgery. Heart surgery is one of the most stressful jobs in the world. And every time you grab that scalpel, you own the outcome.
Yes.
And you know what? It's about a high performance team. So it's not just me, it's the people around me, all the doctors around me. If they're not topping the game, the outcome will not be good. And sometimes, even with your best efforts, after surgery, the heart is still struggling. You have to leave the chest open. What I do is I sleep at bedside with that patient. Even if it means every hour I have to get up and massage the heart. And until that heart gets stronger, and I close the chest and send the patient home. And just like my mother, I never left her bedside when she cried out otherwise. I've never left my patient's bedside. I will never leave your bedside because we're interconnected.
Come on, Doc. Come on, Doc.
And one more thing. We are interconnected. I don't care what the furies that are being propagated out there are. Somebody needs to stand on the podium as a leader and speak out.
Let's go,
because they'll destroy the future of this nation and specifically the future of this state. They need to be learning theories that provide meaning to them because we're in a competitive arena. My gosh, there's no affirmative action in global commerce and technology. Our children are failing.
Amen.
Let somebody admit that. There's a famous man, and I quote him as I come to the end, John Donne, a British metaphysical poet who 400 years ago said, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece, a part of the continent, a piece of the main." And he went on to say that any man's death diminishes me because I'm involved in mankind. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. So any problem in Philadelphia or Allentown should be as much concern to somebody who lives in Collegeport as somebody who lives in Sid. Whether you're white, you're black, you're brown, you're green, we're all human race, it's just one race.
Come on.
And as I end, remember, don't take it lightly. This great country that our ancestors built, something bad is happening. As the Greek historian Thucydides said in 430 BC, thereabouts, coming events cast their shadows. We're facing some critical times, and those critical times require critical decisions. We need a compassionate, critical thinker in Harrisburg. And when the history books of the future are written, let it be said that the people of Pennsylvania and Allentown decided to stand up and straighten their backs and make a bold move for excellence. Because we need excellence. That's who we are.
Yes.
Make me your governor. and it'll be the best decision that you ever make, because I'll never let you down, as I've never let you down in my life. Thank you. I love you.